first question of the panel, and I'm going to ask Matty first. Do you feel, Matty, that the situation migrants face today is different from other times in recent history in your country? And are these differences relevant?
Well, the question is very broad, and the answer is yet very easy because it's yes and no. So it's both ways. I reckon in Finland the situation of immigration has started quite recently. So in the early 90s the humanitarian asylum seekers first came here. But compared to other countries, our experiences are more limited with the incoming migration. Yet we know all that diversity has been always part of our societies. So I think there are interesting dynamics with the recent arrival of asylum seekers for the country as such, but also for the more early arrived immigrant community. They have probably gained some work because they know the languages, they can use their capacities in that sense. But somehow the bit polarized discussion has also hampered their role as members of the Finnish society. So I'm ambitious about if it's yes or no, but it's both. Thank you.
Yeah, I came myself 25 years ago as a refugee to Germany, so I think, and now working with the refugees and people with an immigration background, yeah, I think I have a good view on what the changes are. I don't see so much on the structural level that there is a change, but on the community level what changed a lot nowadays is the civil society much more involved in the work with the refugees within the communities, in try to integrate them in the community and in the neighborhoods. This is what changed a lot, especially in Berlin. What we had or what we have for the past year, from my point of view, is very amazing because the government couldn't integrate in sense of like language or participation in cultural activities and stuff. They couldn't do that with the stuff they have in their shelters. So what happened is that civil society came in and gave language lessons to the refugees. And this is something we didn't have 25 years ago. Everything was given to the government and the shelters and whoever was running the shelters for refugees.
Okay, so Sweden is known for being this big immigrant country. I mean, 1.6 million people decided to immigrate to America. So we're known for being an immigration country, but we're known for being a country where people are immigrating too. I mean, like, we have a big population of Finnish, Swedish people in Sweden. We have a lot of people who came through the working force in the 60s and 70s, and we know that we have a lot of people who came to Sweden in the Balkan War in 1992. So we had like over 85,000 people. But something that we see, and I always love to put this picture into like perspective, is something happened to Sweden in 2015 when we saw the picture of Adnan Kurdi on the beach, and I think that a lot of Swedish, like the civil society, then decided to come along. I mean, as a country that is used to immigration, something happened in 2015 in the Swedish population, and yeah, so I can say that it's the same, but it's it's interesting.
Hello. Well, I speak on the perspective of Canada, and especially in Quebec, which is a little bit different than the rest of Canada in terms of immigration and refugee resettlement. I would say it's more difficult today than it was probably 20, 30 years ago, which is a bit special in Canada, that we talk about permanent migration. People come as a permanent resident. 80-90% of the migrants who arrive in Canada arrive as permanent immigrants. So the status question is already cleared, and after 3-4 years they become Canadian citizens. So it's a completely other process. But I would say, speaking about Quebec, I would say the social society is not very much involved in immigration and welcoming, which changed a lot recently with the Syrian operation, like all over the Western world. There was a big involvement about civil society. I'll speak later about, and very positive experience in this.
Ok. La France a toujours été une terre d'immigration. Il y a toujours eu des immigrés qui sont venus en France et qui ont été plus ou moins rapidement intégrés dans la population française.
France has always been a land of migration, and all those people have been always more or less quickly integrated into the French society.
On peut dire qu'aujourd'hui la situation est particulière et avec des différences. Et moi je lis ça, je fais le lien avec une situation économique très particulière, plutôt mauvaise en France, et une difficulté pour les Français à trouver du travail. En France aujourd'hui, on a plus de 2 millions de chômeurs.
The situation today is different because the economic situation is different. Many French people find it hard to get a job.
Et on peut dire aussi que c'est lié à une situation politique. Les récents attentats, une intégration pas réussie de toute une frange de la population qui est venue d'Algérie suite à la décolonisation, font que les Français aujourd'hui ont de la difficulté à accueillir et à accepter la vague d'immigration, en particulier alors, à cause j'aime pas par les réfugiés, la vague de réfugiés, mais même l'immigration, je dirais, positive, à accueillir des étudiants, à accueillir des gens qui viennent travailler en France.
The political situation is also different because of the killings in 2005 and also the fact that a part of the North African immigration has not been well integrated. So French people find it hard to welcome newcomers, not even refugees, but also other newcomers. I mean, she means also students and all kind of people who are coming to France.
I'm ready. Also in Deutschland, es ist natürlich schon vieles gesagt worden. Und so unterschiedlich ist es bei uns nicht, wie es in anderen europäischen Ländern ist.
So there's a lot of conversation in Germany about this issue, but surely there's not that many differences to other European countries.
Wir haben auch eine lange Geschichte von Menschen, die zu uns kommen aus unterschiedlichen Nationen. Große Einwanderungswellen gab es schon immer nach Deutschland, nach dem Zweiten Weltkrieg. Das war einmal die große Einwanderungswelle mit den Gastarbeitern in den 50er und 60er Jahren.
So we have a long tradition of there being immigration to Germany. There have been various waves of immigration. One of the biggest was after the Second World War, the guest workers who came to work in Germany.
Danach gab es politische Migration, aber vor allen Dingen aus Polen und aus der Tschechei und Tschechoslowakei und aus Russland.
So then came the waves of political migrants who came from Poland, Czechoslovakia and Russia.
Und mit diesen Erfahrungen heraus, wie wir dann versucht haben zu integrieren, wie Deutschland versucht hat, die Leute zu integrieren, waren eben auch unterschiedlich. Teilweise ist Integration gelungen. Wir können sagen, dass bei den Menschen, die aus Osteuropa gekommen sind, kann man sagen, auch wenn sie noch eine eigene Community sind, gibt es eine sehr starke Integration in die Gesellschaft?
So with these different groups, there are various experiences about how well they've been integrated into society. So for example, the Eastern Europeans who've come over are generally quite well integrated into society, although they still have their own communities. In general, we can say that.
Bei den Menschen, die als Gastarbeiter gekommen sind, denke ich mir, sind neben allen Möglichkeiten der Integration auch von unserer Seite einige Fehler gemacht worden. Insbesondere, dass man über Integration gar nicht nachgedacht hat, sondern eher befördert hat, dass teilweise Parallelgesellschaften entstehen konnten.
So there have been more mistakes that were made in relating to guest workers. So these are mainly from, for example, from Turkey, but also from other countries that they haven't been as well integrated in society.
Mit der großen Fluchtwelle vor 1,5 Jahren, wo wir gelernt haben und wo wir gesehen haben, dass wir eine sehr gute Willkommenskultur haben in Deutschland, müssen wir gleichzeitig auch kritisch reflektieren, was wir an Fehlern in der Vergangenheit gemacht haben bei der Integration von Menschen, die hergekommen sind, und jetzt versuchen, aus diesen Fehlern wirklich auch zu lernen. Also von Anfang an zu schauen, dass wir Sprachkurse intensiv anbieten, dass sie auch ausreichen, dass wir Menschen zeitnah in Beschäftigung, in Arbeit bringen und dass wir zeitnah versuchen, uns kennenzulernen.
So with the new wave of immigration that's come in the last couple of years, we can see in Germany there's been a new culture, a welcoming culture that has been established. This is something that is definitely can be that we appreciate. However, it's also an opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the past and to implement them in integrating these new populations. For example, in making sure that they are quickly integrated into the working population, that they're able to find jobs, and also that they are integrated socially into the society.
Mein letzter Satz dazu noch. Wir haben hier eine vergleichbare Entwicklung, wie sie vielleicht auch eben in Frankreich beschrieben worden ist. Wir haben auch, es steigt, auf der einen Seite haben wir eine sehr große Willkommenskultur, auf der anderen Seite erleben wir gerade eine Entwicklung in unserer Gesellschaft, die viel mit Ressentiments zu tun hat, die viel mit Ablehnung zu tun hat und vor allen Dingen gerade dort Ablehnung entsteht, wo gar keine Flüchtlinge sind.
So we can also see there's a development which can be compared to what the colleague was saying about France, that on the one side we have this welcome culture, and on the other hand there is a development that there is a lot of resentment and rejection of the new refugees that are coming, which is also something we have to deal with.
So I think maybe it's fair to say that everywhere's experienced people coming newly to their countries for a long time, but there are kind of particular political and social things happening at the moment that are causing a variety of quite extreme sort of different reactions within each country as well as across different countries. And I know, Stefan, you wanted to pick up.
I just put a little piment in the discussion. We're talking about mistakes that have been done in the past in different Western countries, but my feeling is that we are doing the same mistakes again at the moment. I mean, when we see what's going on in France, even in Germany, I don't think we have learned about past experiences, and I worked since 25 years now in the immigration integration business in Quebec, and we are all repeating the mistakes year after year, and the government and the officials don't. It's very difficult, I mean, to adapt the situation to the needs of newcomers, and I don't see in Germany at the moment that there are any adaptation. Of course, the welcoming situation is much more better with the Syrians and with all what happened. But if we look deeper, I don't see any changes.
That's an interesting point. So what do other people think about that? Have we learnt from the past or not? I'll ask Gabrielle to pick up in a minute, but no, do you want to say something first?
take Sweden as a... I don't think so, to be honest. Obviously, we haven't. And in Sweden, we see a lot of... As I said, we're known for being a country where a lot of immigrants are taking Sweden as a place where they want to build and start their lives in. And what I feel is that we have a lot of structural problems in Sweden that we really should do something about. I don't know how much you know, but 2015, it was more than 35,000 unaccompanied children who came to Sweden. And we had like 1,900 children of them who just disappeared. Nobody knows where they went, where they are. And that shows a structural problem that shouldn't be allowed in like a democratic society. And we see a lot of other things. In the same way that we saw that the Swedish, we have a right-wing party in Sweden that is taking more power just through all the refugees that comes to Sweden. So we have a lot of structural problems. And my biggest hope were that when we saw the big immigration from Lebanon and from Iraq in the 80s, that we will somehow take this and like learn from our mistakes. But obviously it's like it's like we got 84,000 refugees in Malmö in the central station. We didn't even know that you were supposed to come here. Everybody was so surprised about it. And as I said, Alan Kurdi were the thing that happened that made something with the Swedish population and felt like now we need to do something. Now we need to take action. But hey, the civil war in Syria started 2011. For me, I don't know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabrielle, did you want to pick up on Stefan's point?
Oh, do you want to respond to what they were saying?
Ja, ich würde ganz gerne das auf Deutsch hören.
Oh, sorry.
Very nice. Ob Sie darauf antworten wollen, also ob Sie darauf antworten wollen, was er gesagt hat. Wir haben uns nicht aus den Fehlern gelernt. Okay.
Ja, teils. Ja. Wir haben, das Verrückte ist ja, wir wissen um die Fehler, die wir gemacht haben. Aber was heißt denn, es ist so leicht zu sagen, was heißt das denn in der Umsetzung dessen? Was heißt das in dem Anpassen dessen? Wir haben immer Einwanderung und jedes Land in Westeuropa, in Nordamerika oder Nordeuropa, wie man sich immer einordnet, jetzt auch in Osteuropa, wir wissen, was Migration ist und viele von uns wissen auch, was Emigration ist. Und wir wissen, was falsch gelaufen ist, aber wir wissen zum Beispiel auch in Deutschland wir haben eine jenseits einer Willkommenskultur, die getragen wurde von Ihnen hier im Saal, von Menschen, die sich engagieren, haben wir kein strukturelles Einwanderungsgesetz. Wir sind ein Einwanderungsland. Deutschland ist ein Land, wo eingewandert wird. Wir haben ein demografisches Problem. Wir brauchen junge Menschen, wir brauchen Menschen, die hierher kommen und sich hier und hier arbeiten müssen, wollen und dürfen.
So the crazy thing is that although we all know about the mistakes that have been made in the past, it's very difficult to actually adapt to them. So we sitting here in this hall are probably people who are engaged and trying to contribute to this welcoming culture. But the fact is that in Germany, even though it can be described as an immigrant country in the sense that there's a high proportion of immigrants in this country, there is no proper law defining this area. And this is
Und wir machen nach wie vor die gleichen Fehler. Die Leute sind hier, die sind bei uns. Und es ist einfach aufgrund der gesetzlichen Rahmenbedingungen und unseres Bürokratieverständnisses nicht möglich, Menschen, die hier arbeiten wollen, junge Menschen zeitnah, selbst niedrigschwellig, also geringfügig, in eine Beschäftigung zu bringen. Wir parken die Menschen im Nichtstun und damit fördern wir die Segregation. Und das ist überhaupt keine Integration.
So the main problem is that we're lacking this legal framework which would enable us, and also the societal requirements that would be able to integrate people, as she was saying, with this into work within a short period of time, so that they end up landing in very low qualified jobs, which they're often overqualified for, and this contributes to a segregation of society.
Claudie, and then Matti wants to say something.
Je pense que ce que l'on a retenu du passé, c'est que l'on peut rater une intégration, l'intégration d'une population. Et qu'aujourd'hui, de n'avoir pas réussi fait qu'on a peur.
She thinks that what we can learn from the past is that we can fail to integrate people. So, and that is why today we are afraid, because we are afraid to fail again.
Et on a oublié d'apprendre toutes les intégrations réussies.
And we forgot to learn when we did good.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. Could you pass them?
Yeah, to contextualize a little bit, the stories told from around the world of the welcoming culture, that has been also the case in Finland. It's a good thing. People are joining as volunteers for the local settlements to work with the newly arrived asylum seekers. They are donating furniture, clothes, whatever, opening their homes. Yet at the same time there is this national policy which is becoming stricter and more restrictive with regard to family reunification, and from the perspective of people's possibility to fully be part of the society, then clearly family life is certainly a matter which is of importance. So that is a great challenge. So we are very much moving on various levels, which the friends have shown. I guess in principle some good signs that in Finland it has been a very emphasis on education, learning the language on a slow pace. So I think now it has become more in shared understanding that it should be a bit more quicker process to get the language and also practice at the same time, not to store people like for 6-9 years before they can even have any chance for joining the labor market. Yet there are this question of fear in general about the people, about the politicians, which is actively used for very many not that constructive means.
Thanks, Matti.
Yeah, it's very good points you all said about integrating. I would rather talk about participation within the society rather than integration. I think, yes, it's all right. We need the infrastructure within the countries, but we also have to change the society, the mindsets they have, because if we give them the jobs, like the possibility that they can work and they don't find a job, so then it doesn't bring anything that we have the laws or the structure for that. And when we compare to the immigrants who are living already in the country, it's also even for a person like me who is very well educated that I face discrimination within the country. And those are points we have to talk about, because I'm sure we will have, if the laws changing, I can talk that for Germany, and I'm sure it will be for many European countries, that they will have the possibility to work, but what we will face is they will not find a job and the difficulties they will have at their job place. It's the same for education. I mean, I'm working for a company where we try to transfer the kids with an immigration backgrounds, now also the refugees, from school to the companies, and it's mostly public sector. And it's difficult. They don't want to have our kids. It is because they are different. I mean, we have the research in Germany where they ask companies, more the private one, how many students they had with an immigration background working in their working place. And 60% of them said they had never Why? Because, oh, I don't know, and mostly people are afraid of this other thing. I would call myself as a German. I wasn't born here, but I grew up. So if everybody's all the time telling me I am different, I am something else, I am an immigrant, and I don't see something different between me and German, white German, I would say. I don't see the difference. The only thing is I speak Turkish, but the white German speaks maybe Spanish. So where is the difference? Why is it that I don't fit in this company? So, and for years what Germany did, that they put them in different certain areas. We can say for Berlin, the guest workers, they were only allowed to live in Kreuzberg or in Neukölln. And then they expected them to integrate. How do you want to integrate in the society if the society don't want you to be part of the society? And still it's the same, the welcoming culture we have in Germany, it's wonderful. I am one of the coordinator of an initiative in an area what we built in Germany now, and said like, oh, to coordinate the voluntary work. I'm doing that also voluntarily, but the people, they don't listen. It's very nice how they are very friendly towards the refugees, but nobody listens to their needs. It's not about what is it what you need and let me help you, empower you to do that, what you want to do. It's more over top down. I tell you what is good in Germany, and this is how the rules are.
So I think we're getting into some really interesting questions around the challenges that we face, and I think, you know, we're all very good at being of practical help and support, but what kind of power do you think we have to operate at different levels to tackle questions? I think you referred to different levels, Matti, didn't you, in what you were saying? Would anybody like to, Stefan?
I can speak about the experience in Quebec in Canada. We have, of course, exactly the same, maybe on different levels, what you said. I mean, it's daily, our daily experience also. The model that was developed in Canada and in Quebec, were immigration countries, is to build up a network of services all through the country. There are a couple of hundreds agencies who are contracted by the government, by the federal government for the rest of Canada, by the Quebec government in Quebec, and to offer services when the immigrant or the refugee arrives. The first day he is directed to this agency with specialized services adapted, often run by immigrants themselves or some communities, older communities, and about 200,000-300,000 new immigrants every year go through these services, who adapt decades of the services we offer today are not the same we offered 10 years ago. So they're evaluating, and this is helpful. But also what we found out that you have, of course, services, social services, language training, and so on. But most of the job these agencies are doing is advocacy work to defend the rights of these people who, as you said, don't find a job, are rejected, are discriminated, and need, all the research say in Canada it takes about 10 years before, even if you have a permanent status, to get at the level as a Canadian could, economically speaking, could arrive. You know, it takes about 10, 15 years to be on the same level economically. And we're talking about very educated and then skilled immigration in Canada, of course.
So advocacy.
Yeah. Without advocacy, it doesn't work. No.
Yeah. Would anybody like to comment and pick up on that?
Moi, je pense qu'on pourrait réussir. Je pense qu'il y a le potentiel, et je pense que la société civile pourrait tout à fait accueillir ces migrants, non seulement parce qu'ils auraient pitié ou ils voudraient les aider, mais aussi parce que ce sont des personnes humaines que l'on accueille. Et je crois que l'humanité est encore là dans chacun d'entre nous. Tu veux traduire?
She thinks that we have the potential to succeed, to integrate all those migrants and refugees, because, and especially the civil society has the strength to do it. Not only because we want to help, but also because these are human beings and we can relate to that.
Mais je crois que nous avons un vrai combat à mener, un combat politique contre des idées qui s'expriment aujourd'hui très fortement en Europe. On voit qu'elles s'expriment aussi aux États-Unis. Et là, il ne s'agit pas de bonne volonté ou de savoir-faire. Il s'agit d'affirmer une vraie position politique, de dire que l'on refuse certaines idées d'extrême droite en particulier, contre l'idée que l'autre pourrait être différent ou un ennemi et pas vraiment humain.
But we have a political fight to stand against some ideas, right-wing ideas, which are all over the place. I mean, in Europe and the United States, and we have to make a statement that the others are not different, but human beings like us.
Nous ne savons pas parler assez fort.
We don't speak loud enough. Okay. Is it loud enough?
Yeah. Some very good points there. And we have a question from the audience.
I guess this is a question about addressing the post-traumatic stress with the refugees coming in, that there's a large number of people that have been very traumatized. And I wanted to hear from the panel how you are addressing that. What sort of resources are additional resources, not just the regular issues of someone moving to a new country because they intentionally want to go there, but how you're dealing with the mental health trauma of post-traumatic stress for often in Canada, many of the families are huge families. They may have children with special needs, and then you have post-traumatic stress on top of that. So just if you could speak to that, I'd be interested to hear.
And I suppose the question is, are there extra resources, and are these things being tackled as well? So who would like to answer that?
Fortunately, with the Syrian operation also, there are, at least I can speak on our behalf in Canada and in Quebec also, there have been some more resources because there was a real will, political will that the operation works well. So they have suddenly lots of resources appeared. And yeah, we do a lot of training actually in Montreal and in other cities around this item for settlement workers so they can detect and help and refer well. We have some, of course, specialized services in the health and social services also. And also the schools have been very involved also to develop more resources because we got lots of children. And also what I forgot to say at least in Canada, I mean the immigration is very, very majoritarily a family immigration. It's not individuals, it's our family. So we have to focus on services to families, not to individuals. And the problem is the social services are very focused on individuals. And but what we need is support to the families, because this is our families, children, women, men who need to be supported, not individuals.
Gabrielle, I think you wanted to say something, then you, Matti.
Als erstes ist unsere Erfahrung, dass man erstmal in gewissen Verhaltensweisen erkennen muss, dass es sich hierbei um eine Traumatisierung überhaupt handelt. Es reicht nicht, wenn wir uns darüber Gedanken machen, was wir uns als traumatisiert vorstellen, sondern wir haben die Erfahrung gemacht, Kinder aus Flüchtlingsfamilien kommen in eine Kindertagesstätte und benehmen sich da aggressiv. Oder wenn Spielzeug da ist, das Spielzeug, nehmen sie es einfach weg, spielen nicht mit anderen Kindern, nehmen es weg, stecken es ein und wollen es nicht mehr herausgeben. Sind diese kleinen, feinen Verhaltensweisen, und da reicht es nicht, wenn wir sagen, der Gesundheitsdienst macht etwas oder die Politik muss etwas machen, sondern wir müssen die Erzieherinnen und Erzieher in den Kitas schulen, wir müssen denen Unterstützung anbieten, wir müssen denen ein Support, ein Mentoring anbieten. Da geht es schon los. Um dann zu schauen, wie sich Kinder langsam wieder, das ist Traumatisierung. Also Traumatisierung hat so viele unterschiedliche Gesichter und wir können das nicht durch ein staatliches, verordnetes Gesundheitssystem organisieren, von oben herab, sondern wir müssen an unterschiedlichsten, vielen, vielen Stellen bei unserem normalen Fachpersonal, die damit konfrontiert werden und zusammenarbeiten im täglichen Leben, eine Umgangsform damit, eine Unterstützung anbieten und eine Umgangsform denen und dann lernen, damit sie ihre Arbeit trotzdem gut weitermachen können.
So the first thing to recognize is to recognize the symptoms and the issues that people come with to this country. So it's not about imagining what their trauma could be, but about actually listening and reacting to particular, even smaller types of behavioral discrepancies within, for example, kindergarten. She gave the example of a child which comes into a kindergarten and perhaps reacts aggressively and takes toys away from the other children. So she says the key thing is not to focus on sort of a top-down method of a sort of a general health system which is imposed upon all refugees, but to train people who are actually working in the field, in kindergartens, the kindergarten teachers and the social workers, whoever comes into contact with these people, to recognize and understand these symptoms so they can deal with it.
Thanks, Gabrielle. So important points about not having top-down approaches, about having to think about advocacy, and a call from Claudia around taking the political dimension into account. Matti?
Well, coming back to the mental health issue, I'm afraid there ain't, with regard to the recently arrived asylum seekers, there might not be enough resources available. What in the reception centers that are run by the Viittakivi, our social enterprise, I think in general, as promotion of mental health is try to keep the people who are in waiting active. So, but that's not the solution if you have severe mental problems. But just to keep the community of the asylum seekers in a good way, in a dynamic way, to support the well-being of the families, of the individuals, and provide opportunities to do things, because waiting in not knowing what might be the outcome of the process is a stressful situation for any. Another thing that has been a bit reflected when volunteers are trained to work with asylum seekers, what is appropriate about training or discussing about the mental health issues, because they are not supposed to be mental health experts. They are supposed to be as individuals, as humans to humans. Yet if you point out that there might be, they are coming from the crisis zones, so people might start seeing things that doesn't exist. So it's a delicate balance, and we quite can't say what would be the right way to do, maybe to address this, but keep at the same time in mind that people have capacities, and let's not assume that people are very vulnerable, but just to try to encourage the participation and active activity of their own life.
So building on people's strengths. What would...
Yeah, I would just like to say that in Sweden we have, both Sweden and Norway are pretty good at handling with something called trauma-medveten omsorg, which is, the English word for it will be trauma care, aware care. Which means that around Sweden we're now educating soccer coaches, foster parents, teachers, how to see signals. So the civil society in Sweden are really getting together to understand that we have to see the signals. And as a representative of the National Federation of Settlements and Youth Clubs, we lately in Sweden have seen that we need to do something when it comes to helping our members, in the meaning that we have a lot of youth leaders who are in the front line of meeting youngsters that probably have been suffering through severe trauma. So we really need to work with this, because it's a lot of youth leaders that are calling and telling us about trauma signals and how can we meet these. I mean, it's really important. So if somebody wants to know a little bit more about it, I would really recommend the Norwegian study of trauma care awareness. It's really good. And it's this Save the Children who has this trauma care. So if you're interested about knowing a little bit more about that. Yeah.
Thank you. And we've got a question in the audience.
Ich mache es in Deutsch, da bin ich schneller. 3 Punkte finde ich wichtig. Zum einen würde ich gerne an das anschließen, was du, Gabriele, gerade sagtest. Also tatsächlich das Fortbilden von Sozialarbeiterinnen, Sozialarbeitern, Erziehern, Erzieherinnen ist super wichtig. Eigentlich in allen Bereichen. Und zwar, das ist der zweite Punkt, ich denke, dass wir in der sozialen Arbeit sehr viele erfolgreiche Konzepte eigentlich haben, wie beispielsweise die Selbsthilfebewegung oder Empowern der Selbstorganisation oder Stadtteilkulturarbeit, ja, und viele andere Konzepte auch. Wir haben dort fähige Leute und ich denke, das Günstigste ist eigentlich, die Leute dort so weit fortzubilden, dass sozusagen auch geflüchtete Menschen in der normalen, sage ich mal in Anführungsstrichen, in dem normalen sozialen Feld mit aufgenommen werden können. Und da komme ich zu dem dritten Punkt, der auch schon angesprochen wurde. Bei allem Fortbilden, denke ich, ist es total wichtig, auch die Geschichte von we and the other mit zu bedenken. Also, dass es eben auch darum geht, sofort fertig, dass es auch darum geht.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you for a moment?
Okay.
So she was wanted to add to the point that Gabriele or Frau Schlimpe was saying about how important it is to train people on the ground, the social workers, and also to express how important or how much we have, how many resources we have within social work, which can be used to within this particular issue. So. Self-organization.
Neighborhood.
And then neighborhood work were a few examples of resources that can be used.
Aber eben, wie gesagt, der zweite Punkt, der wichtig ist, finde ich, dass auch bei der Fortbildung für diese spezifischen Dinge es eben total wichtig ist, auch zu bedenken, dass dieses Konzept wir und die anderen, dass darüber auch in der Praxis gesprochen wird und fortgebildet wird. Denn manchmal werden auch Traumatisierungen gesehen oder Kulturalismen, die vielleicht auch mehr stigmatisierend sind und vielleicht auch gar nicht so vorhanden sind.
So this is also an important aspect to consider in training courses for people working in these spheres, that this us and them mentality, for example, focusing on refugees as being people who are more likely to have trauma, might contribute to stigmatization within the field.
Und dabei dann eben auch die Ressourcen übersehen werden. Dazu habe ich noch ein kleines Beispiel. Wir haben eine Theateraktion gemacht mit Senioren und Seniorinnen und Kindern von einer Willkommensklasse, mussten einen Ausflug machen und 25 Minuten in der S-Bahn fahren. und sagten das den Kindern und dann sagte ein Kind, ach, kein Problem, wir sind 25 Stunden gelaufen, bis wir eine Pause gemacht haben. Einfach mal so rausgehauen, ja, kein Problem. Also es wird auch nicht immer als Defizit aufgefasst, sozusagen.
Yes, so she was emphasizing how we shouldn't be talking too much about the weaknesses of these people, but also about their strengths. And she had an example from a theatre project with elderly people and children, and they were a bit worried that the children would have to travel for 25 minutes to get to a particular location. And one of the children answered that this is no problem because when he was on his way, he had to walk for 25 hours before he was able to take a break.
I'd like to go back for a moment to the discussion we started with around making the same mistakes over and over. And I come from a country of immigrants. 90% of Canadian people are either immigrants or descended from immigrants, more than 90. And yet we still make the same mistakes. You would think we would be good at it after 400 years of this, but not doing so well. If there was one single mistake we could avoid or one single thing we could change, I'd be interested to hear what you think would have the biggest impact.
What a brilliant question. Can I go around in a circle if everybody could answer?
Eine Sache wäre, was man wieder machen könnte, korrigieren könnte, ein Fehler, den man gemacht wurde,
it's a relevant question. I'll not answer it right now, but I'll come back to the issue of health. Because I think that's, if we are talking, as we are talking about people as active participants of a society, about inclusion, then health is one aspect we need to focus on. So I think it's vital to see if, and I'm not a very great supporter of very much explaining things in cultural terms, but there are differences in various groups in what kind of health issues they are facing. So that could be one way of looking at it, but it's not something I would suggest as an answer to your question, what should be done. So I'll pass the mic on and save some time and maybe come back to it later.
I think you could have passed that on as answering a question if you'd have liked.
What is one mistake we could change? From my point of view, if we would stop focusing on ethnic background and nationality and rather on focusing that we are all human beings, I think that would help more in our daily work with each other, not with the people.
And I think one thing that is really important is that we have to stop seeing this group of people as a homogeneous group. I mean, we have so much resources in the group that I think we're losing a lot of information about that. And I see that as a big problem because in the same way we have this system in Sweden saying that, oh, but we have some immigrants here coming from Syria, let us put them in this little corner there where every Syrian person lives so they can integrate in that way. I mean, that is one thing, yeah.
Good question. I could tell you 10 different things we should do, but one, I think everybody agrees, or there's really a large consensus now all over that integration, or you don't like the word integration, I know, but we need inclusion, we need something to describe what we're doing. Is a two-way, that integration is a two-way process. I think now everybody, even the minister yesterday or 2 days ago say yes, two-way process, we must adapt and so on. And so, but when I look for my work, all the measures and all the funding, all what's done is focused on the migrant. It's not focused on the native, on the native population who's welcoming, and that we have put much more energy on working on the welcoming society than on the migrant himself. Both must do efforts. Now the effort is mainly made by the migrant. But very few efforts were made by the welcoming society.
Je suis d'accord avec toi sur le fait qu'il y a à la fois un effort de pédagogie à faire avec les personnes accueillantes, mais je crois aussi que...
She does agree with him that it's a two-way process, but everybody agrees, but now we have to do it.
Mais je crois aussi qu'il faudrait qu'on puisse compter sur nos gouvernements ou sur des personnes, je ne sais pas, qui puissent avoir une vision un peu systémique. Il me semble qu'un des échecs que l'on subit en France est d'avoir répondu immédiatement à l'afflux de réfugiés qui venaient d'Afrique du Nord.
But she also thinks that the government, or at least some people in the government, should have a systemic approach. It means that they should see things as a global system. She's going to give an example regarding people coming from North Africa. In France, we had a quick response to the fact that people are coming from North Africa, and
on a fait le choix d'être dans l'accueil immédiat des personnes, de trouver des logements, de trouver des endroits où on pouvait les mettre. Et on a créé des sortes de lieux fermés. Et ensuite, l'intégration est devenue très difficile.
This response was very quick, but it has created some issues because people coming from North Africa has been put in separate housings, and then this neighborhood became some kind of ghettos.
Et je crois qu'une des choses que l'on devrait faire pour avoir cette vision globale serait réellement de partir des besoins et des attentes des personnes qui arrivent, qui sont très différentes. Et donc certaines sont à réellement prendre en charge avec de l'aide. Certains ont beaucoup d'autonomie, sont capables de beaucoup d'autonomie, et beaucoup aussi veulent repartir dans leur pays.
But she thinks that we should take care of the needs of the people, not only globally but individually. Some people need to be taken in charge. Some people are very autonomous. They can do things for themselves. And some people want to go back to their own country. So I think the main point is that we don't have to create solutions, global solutions for all the migrants, but to adapt to what they need.
Vieles wurde jetzt schon gesagt, was gut und richtig ist und was klug und richtig ist. Ich würde ganz gern noch auf eine Sache aufmerksam machen, wo ich denke, wir können wirklich aus Fehlern lernen und es besser machen, richtig besser machen. Wir sollten nicht über die Flüchtlinge reden, sondern mit ihnen. Und naja, wer ist denn, also jetzt und zwar von Anfang an, warum können nicht Hilfe zur Selbsthilfe, Selbstorganisation, warum können Menschen, die hierher gekommen sind und jetzt die Flüchtlinge sind und auch hier bleiben wollen, und viele wollen das sicher auch, warum können die nicht mit beteiligt werden bei dem Bau von Flüchtlingsunterkünften? Von Anfang an. Sie können darüber Arbeit finden, gemeinsam mit planen, Innenarchitekt, also wenn sie innen mit ausbauen, außen mitbauen, Flüchtlingsunterkünfte von Anfang an, also die Gemeinschaftsunterkünfte, die längerfristig sind, gemeinsam mitbauen. Warum können wir uns nicht von vornherein, wir müssen von vornherein die Dinge anders denken und zwar lernen, sowohl, na klar, das ist unsere Gesellschaft und das ist hier und sie kommen hier zu uns und wir nicht zu denen, aber schon sind wir, aber sie sind jetzt hier und wir müssen gemeinsam mit ihnen von vornherein alle diese Diskussionen, die wir jetzt hier führen, mit ihnen gemeinsam führen und gemeinsam denken und schauen, wie wir sie hier integrieren können. Das war der große Fehler in der Vergangenheit, dass wir glauben und vielleicht neigen ja Sozialpädagogen besonders gut leicht dazu, dass wir glauben, was gut und richtig ist für den anderen, für Gegenüber. Und von diesem Glauben, von diesen absolutistischen Haltungen müssen wir uns lernen, immer stärker zu lösen. Und zwar jeden Tag, bei jedem Denken, wie wir es gemeinsam gestalten wollen.
So a lot of things have already been said in this ground, and Stephanie some quite important things as well. One thing that we need to emphasize is that we talk often too much about refugees and not enough with refugees. And so she gave some examples of how we could be more involved or participate more in processes that involve them. For example, like when we are building new refugee homes and accommodation, why can't they be involved, have small jobs in building it, for example, or in deciding how it should be designed internally, or other processes within the homes. This is one example, I think, but it speaks to a greater aim of involving people, and I think treating them as equals. I think she said that often we as social workers might think we know better than other people and try and prescribe what is the best solution to certain problems and not involve them enough.
Thanks very much. We're going to close in a minute, and so we don't have time for more questions. But I wondered if there's one person in the audience who is burning to say one thing, because that's what I'm going to ask everybody in the panel, and it looked like that might be you. Would you like to say something?
Well, actually, as in line with what's already said, then we have to also be critical about this whole conference ourselves also. I mean, are there any refugees here? I don't know, but well, for me, my father was a political refugee and I was 7 when I came to the Netherlands. And of course, I can't compare myself to the whole new wave of refugees now in Europe, because they are really, refugees from war, etc. But again, I was wondering the whole time this conference, how would my parents react to these type of integration? For them, it doesn't mean anything, because for them it was just a quick solution, like we're in danger and we have to go somewhere, and it was Holland. So it was really like that. And then you come to a country that, of course, they are talking about you have to integrate, but integrate to what? To become Dutch? Or, I mean, my parents were really high educated. They're now working already for 20 years in a country below their qualifications. That makes someone really desperate, And then if you keep constantly saying you have to integrate, like what do they have to do? We never specify what that means, like integrating to what. And also the other point that I wanted to make is this paternalistic view of me helping the other. Of course, I also do volunteer work, and I have to keep in mind with myself also that I'm not here to helping the other. I'm just here to make connections in a society that connection is really needed. Meetings between people are a start. But then again, if you don't focus on the whole structural, the government, but also how we talk in our languages is so important. Also in Holland, they keep saying, yeah, integration has failed because, the Turkish community, the Moroccan community. Then I'm always figuring did they came here or did you brought them here to work? So it's the whole language that makes the context. And of course, Dutch people that never met a foreign people, they will think constantly, oh my God, all these foreign people in Holland, they are screwing up our economy, I can't find a job, he is getting my job. Of course, people were gonna think that if the whole media, and of course our governments, there is no leadership at all, especially in Holland. I'm just thinking where is the leadership here? How can you see this segregation taking place? And it's so dangerous because people, even like me, that I feel Dutch, like the Turkish woman said also, but if people constantly keep telling me yeah, but you people have to integrate, I'm what is that? keep putting context, but also ourselves. I'm really saying to ourselves also, keep putting context in what you're saying. Like the whole guest workers, they didn't came here. We brought them here. Okay, I just want to close it with that.
I wished I'd asked you to summarise. Okay, well, we don't have time to answer questions, but a very short statement.
Will be a comment, not a question. Only one problem we have in Austria and Germany too. We have a type of Pegidisierung. We called it Pegidisierung. That means that movements like Pegida, they are reaching a lot of people, even our workers in our organization. And we educate our workers, the volunteers, but we have really a political problem how to do it. And it's important, this touch with the local politicians. You know, they are losing their elections. We are losing very good politicians because they lose their elections. How to deal with this as a profession? You know, it's really political time now, and it's a hard thing to see that local politicians they lost the jobs because they understand us and are doing it in our way. You see, it's I think a big problem.
I agree. I think that it would non. Je pense que ça serait une très mauvaise chose que l'extrême droite devienne, que Marine Le Pen devienne présidente de la France. Ça serait une très mauvaise chose pour l'Europe.
So we've got to
I think
close
everybody
now.
understood that.
Sorry. We don't need to translate
She
that.
doesn't want Marine Le Pen to be president.
Okay, I'm going to ask the panel just to make one last comment on any comment they like, but something they'd like people to go away and perhaps think about, something we haven't mentioned before. Who wants to start?
Just so it's fresh still, you said you put words on the stuff that I think all of us really want to put into words. We have to stop defining people. I don't want to sit here and you start to think about is she really Swedish? Is she really, I think that is one question that is really important. We have to talk about integration. I mean, integration is when we talk about kids, are they supposed to integrate too in society? Are we talking about inclusion, or what are we really talking about? I think that's a really important approach to this too. And I want us to stop talking about that we're talking about refugees. I hate that word. I get so sad. You know, all the way to the motel that I did. I don't know if you see the reception. It's like a hotel where a lot of refugees lives. And I feel like just sitting here, I almost started to cry, just sitting here and talking about them. And we're like white, everybody's sitting here. It feels so weird. So for the next time when we're doing stuff like this, we should really talk together, be like included in that certain way. So that's what I want to leave.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Stefan?
I would say the last 12 months were, in terms of international migration, I think was important for the Western world, and we should really learn, analyze exactly what happened, and then plan the future. Because nobody is planning, nobody knows what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, thank you. Matti, I think, wants to...
Well, my sort of idea or question is how best we, in a respectful way, can identify and appreciate the diversity of various kinds among our activities, in our boards, among our staff, volunteers, and people who we are working with.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me is that I think we need inclusive communities where we create space where we all can share our stories. Yeah, that is it, what it would be for me.
Gabrielle.
Okay, nur ein letzter Satz. Ich glaube nicht an politische Lösungen. Ich glaube nicht daran, dass wir von der Politik irgendeine segensreiche Sachen
erhalten werden, die unsere Probleme löst. Ich denke, wir haben ein global-galaktisches Problem, das ist die Flüchtlingsbewegung. Und die ist ja nicht zu Ende mit der jetzigen Unterbrechung der Flüchtlingswelle. Es wird die nächsten geben. Sondern wir brauchen zum einen ein Bewusstsein dafür, dass das erst der Anfang ist einer globalen Bewegung, die sich fortsetzen wird. Das wissen wir, aber es wird keine globale Lösung geben, sondern für uns heißt es, ich bin immer eine Freundin von, wir haben globale Probleme, aber wir brauchen lokale Lösungen. Und Menschen, die einmal hier sind, egal warum, mit denen müssen wir uns anständig benehmen und die müssen wir eine Menge für sie tun. Die Frage, wie sie dann hier reingekommen sind oder warum sie denn hier sind, das ist nochmal die zweite Frage. Aber wenn sie da sind, haben wir uns lokal um sie zu kümmern und wir brauchen lokale Lösungen. Und ich erwarte von der politischen Führung einfach nur, dass sie uns in Ruhe lässt und dass sie uns vernünftige Rahmenbedingungen gibt, dass wir unsere Arbeit ordentlich machen können.
Thanks, Gabrielle.
So she was just saying that she doesn't have much hope in political solutions to these problems. These are global problems, but she doesn't think there's going to be a global solution anytime soon. And we also should be aware of the fact, or should be braced for the future, in which when perhaps one immigration wave ends, another one will start. That this is something that we should be planning for in the future. And thus her solution to this, or her reaction to this, is to focus really on a local level. So there are global problems, but we have to react to them on a local level and put resources into them on a local level. And what she then expects from the politicians in this situation is perhaps not to provide the solution, but at least to give good legal frameworks, or at least give the opportunities for actors on a local level to do their work.
Thank you. Claudia, do you want the last word?
Moi, je voudrais rappeler le discours de Michael hier, qui nous disait tout le danger des mensonges. Et il faut toujours on essaye d'être bien informé et de savoir exactement ce qui se passe. Et donc, de parler toujours avec les gens.
She wants to remind us Michael's speech from yesterday about the lies. And the fact that lies are not being, challenged today, and the necessity for us to be well informed and to talk with the people that we can be as well informed as we could be on those matters.
So I'd like to thank you very much for coming along to join us in this panel discussion, but I'd also like to ask you to thank our panel for sitting here and speaking.